I'm so happy. Finally. We are back in freaking Westeros. Dude, you are not going to believe it. Against all odds, amidst franchise fatigue and the endless churn of content, spring has actually arrived in Westeros. We are back. I know, we all have other things going on. We're still processing the logistical nightmares of the Stepstones or trying to figure out Demon Targaryen's hallucinatory haunted house trips. But we need to pause that because we are doing this now. HBO has finally pulled the trigger on the one spin-off that George R.R. Martin has been practically begging for years to get made. Officially, it's called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. That's a mouthful. The internet, in its infinite need for brevity, tried Akatsk. That's terrible. Some are calling it the Hedge Knight. But let's be real, if you're initiated into the deeper lore, you know this simply as Dunk and Egg. And this isn't just another spoke in the franchise wheel. This feels like a fundamental hard reset on the tone and scope of this universe. We are landing in Westeros roughly 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and about 70 years after the currently airing Dragon Civil War in House of the Dragon. To orient yourself on the timeline, you need to understand the vibe. The realm has just burned itself out. It's been through brutal civil wars, specifically the Blackfire rebellions, because the Targaryen family simply cannot get along. But currently, we are in a period of relative, deceptive peace. Crucially, there are no dragons. Well, let me rephrase that. There are no literal, building-sized flamethrowers scorching the skies. The Targaryens have lost their nuclear deterrent. Now, they have to maintain their grip on the Iron Throne through politics, symbolism, and the lingering shadow of their former power. They are Mummer's dragons, now puppet dragons. This shift changes the entire political landscape. It means the threat isn't death from above. It's the sword in your gut from the guy standing next to you in the mud. And mud is exactly where we start. This show is a radical perspective shift. We are so used to the bird's-eye view of Westeros. We are used to highborn lords plotting in red keeps, dragon queens conquering continents, and ancient ice zombies threatening an apocalypse. We are used to characters obsessed with prophecies that span centuries. Enter Dunk. Our main character isn't born to a noble house. He isn't secretly a chosen one. He is a Hedge Knight, the gig economy worker of Westeros knighthood. He's scrappy, he's devastatingly poor, and when we meet him, his only father figure has just died, leaving him with an old horse, rickety armor, and a vague sense of ambition. Dunk is simple. And I don't mean that as an insult, though many characters in the show will. He is, as the saying goes, Dunk the Lunk, thick as a castle wall. He is straightforward in a world that thrives on duplicity. His concerns aren't continent-scale wars. His concerns are feeding his horse, staying out of the rain, and somehow surviving a single joust without getting his head caved in so he can afford dinner. This is a ground-level view of George R.R. Martin's world. It's the difference between reading a history textbook about a war and reading the diary of a grunt on the front lines. His life gets complicated immediately by the arrival of the other half of our title duo, Egg. A strange, incredibly bold, shaved-headed little boy who essentially forces his way into Dunk's employment as a squire. Dexter's soul Ansell, the kid they got to play Egg, is astounding. It is a massive ask for a 9-year-old to hold the screen against grown adults and carry the emotional weight of a series co-lead, but he brings this weird, precocious depth to the role. He's hiding something, obviously, but his chemistry with Dunk is immediate and undeniable. If that central relationship doesn't work, the whole show collapses. Fortunately, the casting department at HBO remains undefeated. Peter Claffey as Dunk is utterly brilliant. Now, book purists might quirk an eyebrow in the novellas. Dunk is a late teenager, still growing into his massive frame. Claffey is clearly a man in his late 20s. It changes the dynamic slightly. It's less of a pure coming-of-age story and more about a young man finally deciding who he is going to be. But Claffey captures the essence of Dunk perfectly. He is handsome in an unassuming, almost oafish way. He projects an awkward charm and a transparent honesty that feels practically alien in Westeros. This dynamic duo takes us to the tourney at Ashford. Again, the scale is different. We aren't in King's Landing or Winterfell. We are in Ashford, which the High Lords consider a backwater in the Reach. The stakes here feel incredibly low compared to the impending Long Night, but for Dunk, they are life or death. This shift in scale allows for a massive shift in tone. If you were traumatized by the pilots of the previous shows, you can relax. Game of Thrones ended its first episode with Jaime Lannister pushing a child out of a tower window to protect incestuous secrets. House of the Dragon ended its premiere with a horrific, forced C-section that resulted in 2 deaths, setting up a generational tragedy. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms ends its first episode with Dunk and Egg looking up at the stars, dreaming about what tomorrow might hold. It is night and day. It is delightfully playful, sometimes silly, and genuinely wacky and fun. Elements like music, editing, and sound design are utilized in ways you would never expect from this franchise. The score isn't just reusing Ramin Djawadi's iconic themes. It feels distinct, folkier, more grounded. It's a brave choice to take such an established, often grimdark franchise and get this experimental and relaxed with a long-anticipated spin-off. It shows a confidence in the source material. Speaking of source material, this is based on the Dunk and Egg novellas. These are short, breezy reads. You could finish the first one, The Hedge Knight, in about 2 hours. This dictates the structure of the show. They're adapting 1 novella per season. That means shorter seasons, only 6 episodes here, and shorter episode runtimes, clocking in between 30 and 45 minutes. This brevity is refreshing. It feels like a tighter, more focused narrative. It also leads to some bold stylistic choices, like the complete lack of a traditional intro sequence. No map montage, no gears turning, no bloodlines flowing. Just a title card and boom, we're in the story. It was jarring at first, given how iconic those intros are, but for a shorter, punchier show, it's the right call. George R.R. Martin has been very vocal about how happy he is with this adaptation, calling it the most faithful one yet. And if you've read the books, you'll find yourself doing the DiCaprio pointing meme constantly. Much of the dialogue is ripped straight from the page. Now, adapting a short novella into 3+ hours of television means some expansion is necessary. Showrunner Ira Parker has added material, fleshing out the world and the side characters. For the most part, in this first episode, these expansions feel organic. They are delicately considered, adding context without bloating the narrative or betraying the spirit of the original work. They introduce characters like Lionel Baratheon earlier than you might expect, and he is an absolute riot, stealing every scene he's in. But the real secret sauce of the show, and why it feels so different, comes down to its central theme, honor. In the original Game of Thrones, honor was a liability. It was a joke. Ned Stark had honor, and it got his head chopped off in front of his daughters. The lesson of that show was that to survive in Westeros, you had to be morally gray at best, and a complete monster at worst. Goodness did not win. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms flips that on its head. This is George R.R. Martin's romanticism shining through the cynicism. Here, Dunk's honor, his simple, stubborn adherence to a code of decency, isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. Dunk is basically walking into a nest of vipers and reminding them that it's possible to just be a good person. He is pushing up against a world of entrenched politics and cynicism with nothing but good intentions and a very heavy shield. Yes, people are going to make the comparison to Heath Ledger's A Knight's Tale. The vibes are similar, the rock and roll attitude toward jousting, the commoner faking his way into nobility. But remember, Martin published The Hedge Knight years before that movie came out. The DNA runs the other way. This show is going to explore how that inherent goodness gets tested. It's easy to be honorable when you have nothing to lose, but what happens when the politics of the realm start pressing down on you? Ultimately, this premiere is a fantastic start. It's a palate cleanser. It doesn't require you to remember 3 generations of Targaryen incest family trees or ancient Valyrian blood magic prophecies. It just asks you to care about a big, dumb lug of a knight and his weird little bald squire trying to make a buck in a tough world. It's smaller, it's more intimate, and dare I say it, it's heartwarming. There is still some off-putting material. It is still HBO, and it is still Westeros, so expect some mud and some blood. But beneath the grime, there is a beating heart that has been missing from this universe for a long time. HBO has plans for this. They want to do the 3 existing novellas, and George has apparently mapped out many more, with plans for time jumps that will see these actors age into their roles over the next decade, not unlike a Hugh Jackman/Wolverine situation. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now, we are just at the tourney at Ashford. The lances are splintering, the banners are waving, and for the first time in a long time, watching the Game of Thrones franchise feels like a breath of fresh spring air. Whatever you do, don't sleep on this one. It might just end up being the best thing they've done since the golden age of the flagship show. Grab your sword or a lance for scientific purposes and get watching. Then hit the like and subscribe button. Stay tuned to Red Frame for episode reviews, analysis, and more as I work on new videos.